Treyarch are no strangers to Easter eggs. From the various eggs all the way back in World at War to the riddles of zombies, Treyarch have been a master of hiding clues to something more grand right in front of the eyes of all players. While we may normally think of Easter eggs from Treyarch as they are more prominently known for, such as the zombies Easter eggs that have a whole quest line and that will run even the best speedrunners a half hour's time at minimum, there's also plenty that don't have nearly as much setup but instead sets up the rich narrative and lore of the Black Ops universe on its own. One fantastic example of this was the hidden backstory that I'd be willing to bet very little knew existed in the Black Ops 3 multiplayer mode, not campaign. A story that rivaled even that of the campaign in Black Ops 3 and gave that a run for its money, both in how rich and how deep it was, but also how enjoyable it could be to learn more about it. Additionally, Hidden in Plain View is a massive story for Black Ops 4, one that would rival the best of campaigns and perhaps even ties them all together. But that's a different story for a different day. Today we're going to examine the backstory of one map in particular, one that we've seen from the beginning, even the reveal of Black Ops 4 to be exact. It's been hidden in plain view from the get-go, that being the secret backstory of the map Contraband. Situated as a remote island, seemingly as the base of operation for some drug smuggling, shipping, military operations, there's a much deeper origin story that comes before another area that we'll discuss later in the video, but the progression from beginning to end is one that sees the island or port in a wild roller coaster of events. There's surprisingly a lot of history in each of the maps within Black Ops 4, and if you'd like to see more of these, of course, feel free to let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and we can certainly examine the rest as maybe a Kickstarter to a weekly series perhaps. But regardless, let's jump into the story of Contraband at hand. If you've ever taken the time to look around the map in-game, you might be one of few to do so firstly, but if that's the case and you have, you may recognize some markings and text among other things. Well, these are left behind explicitly, sometime well before the events of Black Ops 4, perhaps amid the Cold War, or shortly thereafter, around the time of other Black Ops installments, a ship crew of 2 men became stranded on the island that is Contraband. While one crew member is unnamed, that being the one narrating and leaving these markings around the map, his companion is his friend Frank. Some of the remains are still present, with stocked shelves, survival gear, even clothes around the island being scattered amongst various locations. Now, sure, admittedly, it starts out as any shipwreck story, a crew just trying to survive, waiting for help as they survive together. Some markings even around the map indicate that they started to discern the best sources for food, water, and other things that are needed to survive, such things being marked denoting the coconut trees as the best coconuts, and too salty written on the rocks right above some water sources. But there are also a few indications as to what went wrong and the status of the crew. If you're wondering how long the crew was left stranded there on the island, in the main ship you might be familiar with that's overlooking mid-bridge, there are chalk or rock markings on the metal. This is an indication of every single day that the crew has left there. And if you were to take the time and calculate those out, there's a total of 4,200 tally marks, or roughly 11.5 years. That much time in isolation is enough to drive even the hardest of individuals mad, and that is exactly what happened. From here on out, as time passes, we start to see a more progressively dark story as the characters eventually go insane. If you find any markings around the map, you might notice that there are chalk markings with messages like "Don't wet the water," "Saw a boat today," "Passed me by," "Was it real?" Others including a nod to Dr. Seuss's "One fish, two fish," drawn as underneath the bridge, "One fish, two fish, red fish, dead fish," and as time progresses, the messages get even more insane and even creepier, with ones such as "Fear the beast," "Fear the water," and "It follows me, always watching, always stalking me, it won't let me leave," to which the final culmination of all these markings and entries is perhaps the darkest of them all. While we can only imagine the descent into madness, one final journal, if you will, describes it all. On the wall in the shack near the beachside spawn is an account as the time passes, which is transcribed as follows. Day 5, Frank says help will come soon. Day 143, supplies running low, Frank still thinks we will be saved. Day 215, caught Frank stealing from me, he denies it, but I know the truth. Day 245, Frank and his expletive or crossed out football. Day scribbled out, Frank has disappeared, I will eat well tonight. Day question mark, laughter, and no one leaves. From this alone, it seems that the unnamed narrator has fully descended into madness and is completely insane by this point. It's only assumed that he ultimately died alone, but before that time, we know that his paranoia, or maybe even perhaps legitimate suspicion of his friend Frank, led him to killing him and then turning cannibal while eating his dead friend. And the remains and Frank's football can be found beneath the watchtower on the dock side of the map. So certainly a dark turn to this story, and one that, from a shipwreck survival standpoint, is the worst case scenario. But another interesting question mark on the tragic story of the two shipmates is, what was the beast? We see references that the beast was something to be feared, that it stalked the narrator, and that as a result, he and no one else could ever leave the island. Now, there's a number of explanations that could fill that void, but none of them are confirmed by any other material on the map. We're left with a big question mark in the open-ended response here with this. Now, such explanations could include that maybe it was just the shark in the waters just off the shore that can be seen swimming around. That's perhaps why the inhabitants should fear the water and the beast being the shark, the water being the location the beast is in. Perhaps it's just the insanity and paranoia that will happen to any individual who's lost their minds, or perhaps a further fetched idea is that it's element 115 driving the inhabitants mad. I'll explain a little bit further in a later video, but with Black Ops 4's hidden story, every aspect of the Black Ops universe connects and is all related. But with the new canon material as of Black Ops 4's hidden backstory, dark matter has the prospect of being born of element 115, and in the weapons cache near the docks, those weapon models previously had dark matter fragments with them. So perhaps element 115 may have traces on the island, and therefore were being added on or tacked in with the weapons caches that were later on brought to the island. We see mention of this also in some of the audio files of even the Specialist HQ, in which a rather interesting character ended up saying that there was a cancer among the storyline of Black Ops 4, again playing more so into that dark matter and element 115 comparison and also connection between the two. So interesting to think about, but another suspicion is that there could have been a literal beast on the island. Perhaps something comparable to the monster from Lost, but hopefully a better ending. Or perhaps it's even something apothecant in nature, as that we know, again, with Black Ops 4, everything is connected in some way, shape, or form. And there are scribbles around the map that do loosely look like apothecant symbology from Black Ops 3, or perhaps it's just something else entirely. We're never given any definitive answer, and we probably never will. It's open-ended and gives us much room to speculate with, but it's certainly interesting to take a look at those options on the table and maybe try and figure out which ones make logical sense. But whatever fears the inhabitants had, whether legitimate or born of their insanity, the story concludes with Frank, the narrator's friend, being killed and eaten by the very one telling the story, all while we can assume that the narrator himself died alone sometime following the denoted events. Though that's not the end of the story there. It's chapter 1 done, but there is a second part to this, which isn't as interesting and is a lot more confined to one smaller area. But you fast forward to what may have been half a century or more later from when that shipwreck took place, and we now see that there's a militia or military operation of some sorts occupying the island, with a few locations around the map showcasing weapon caches, shipment manifests, and a whole lot of drugs. If you were to dig around and look at other maps and other connections between everything within Black Ops 4, we actually know who this is that inhabits the island. It's the militia and workers for a drug lord who actually owns the Hacienda compound. By crossing manifests and documents found on the map Hacienda, we have definitive knowledge that this was a shipping outpost used. And what's further is that on Contraband, it's not just a data and weapons facility, but it also contains a manifest that gives us some more deeper information. One on a missing nuclear weapon that we later find out to be stolen by none other than Raul Menendez. But that is another story for another day, because that is the extent of Contraband's secrets, or that we know of so far. The hidden backstory of Black Ops 4 kind of spreads its wings across all maps within Black Ops 4's multiplayer, so would you guys like to see more of this kind of stuff? Of course, feel free to let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I already have a follow-up planned already, so if you guys are interested in seeing what may be very well next week's episode, feel free to give me your thoughts, and of course, if you want to see any map in particular, we can dig around and check out what that may be. But also, on top of that, I am still working on an absolutely massive video detailing the entirety of the backstory of Black Ops 4, because trust me when I say, it is actually insane. When interviews and developers talked about how there would have been an awesome backstory and campaign for Black Ops 4, this is honestly what I think could have been an insane campaign. whenever we take a look at it, if you were to simply just put everything behind a button that says campaign, it's that rich and that thick of a plot line that even though it might not be accessible in plain view by somebody just wanting to go and see the cutscenes and play through straightforward, that doesn't mean that it does not have some insane story behind it. So while it's a little more convoluted and a little more hidden, there's certainly a lot of gravity behind Black Ops 4. So that said, we'll be bringing you guys that as well. I'm hoping to have that here done within a short period of time. I can't guarantee anything, but of course, if you guys enjoy this, make sure you drop a like down below if you guys want to stick around and stay up to date with all things Black Ops 4, multiplayer, blackout, zombies, and of course, the secret backstory of Black Ops 4. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing regarding all of that. If you guys also want to follow me over on Twitter and Instagram, those are the best places to get connected with me outside of YouTube. Practically live on both those. So if you guys want to strike up a conversation, ask me a question, whatever it may be, that link is down there in the description below to both of those. So that said, I hope you guys had a fantastic day. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you guys later. Take care, and peace.